Insurance fraud is a crime, and TDI works closely with prosecutors across the state to stop it. We'll tell you how on this Fraud Files edition of the Texas Insurance Podcast. I'm Ben Gonzalez. Today we're talking with Kyson Johnson and Rick Watson from TDI's Fraud Unit about the Embedded Prosecutors Program and how they work with local district attorneys to fight insurance fraud. If you find this information useful, please like and subscribe to the Texas Insurance Podcast and share it with your friends and family. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us today for this interesting podcast about a program that TDI has of putting insurance prosecutors, investigators into county district attorneys' offices. So, Kyson, start off by telling us a little bit about how the program works, the basics of it.
Well, first, Ben, thanks for having us here today to talk about this. This is a subject I love to talk about. So the Department of Insurance Fraud Unit places prosecutors into district attorneys' offices through a cooperative agreement that we have with them. So we negotiate with a district attorney to have a written memorandum of understanding that allows us to embed a prosecutor into their office to tackle the tough insurance fraud cases that our fraud unit investigators investigate statewide. Some of those are also investigated at the local law enforcement level, and then they may refer those to TDI due to our expertise. And that's an important thing. We provide experts, subject matter experts, to the district attorneys to fight these technically complex crimes. So insurance fraud is a little different from your typical white-collar case in that it has that technical insurance aspect to it. So there might be a question about underwriting or coverage that's not involved in a typical embezzlement or stealing money from the bank type of case.
Right. And those cases came to us beforehand. Like you said, the police or a county would call us and say, hey, we've got this case, we need your help. This kind of puts us right in the middle of it early on in the process, correct?
Exactly. So we have between 20 and 30 investigators statewide that investigate any crimes involving the business of insurance. So it can be consumer-sided fraud or it can be industry-sided fraud. And that puts us in at the ground floor level. We're able to develop the evidence. The investigators see those cases through from initiation all the way to the referral process to the district attorney's offices. And then whenever we have that embedded prosecutor in the DA's office, they're able to accept that fully investigated case from the investigator, present it to a grand jury if the evidence warrants, and then prosecute it all the way through a trial verdict.
How is this a better system than what we had before? I mean, what are we trying to achieve by having the embedded prosecutor?
Well, I think there's a couple of things. First, the district attorneys don't always have the resources to address insurance fraud as a crime. You know, they may be more concerned about rapes, robberies, murders, or other types of offenses that are being committed in their jurisdiction. We are able to put a focus on the crime of insurance fraud or crimes involving the business of insurance, whereas the DA may not have the resources to do that. And then secondly, we do provide that technical expertise. We give them a subject matter expert who is educated and trained in the process of prosecuting insurance fraud. Not that another prosecutor couldn't do it, but if that's your focus and you've developed an expertise in it, then you're going to be a little better than your typical white-collar crime prosecutor who doesn't have any experience with insurance fraud.
And these prosecutors are all TDI employees, right? We're just using the space in those county offices.
Right. So through the process, we hire the prosecutors at TDI. The fraud unit, our prosecution program, interviews the candidates whenever we have an opening, and then we hire that prosecutor as a TDI fraud unit employee. We require a certain level of experience in the application process, of felony level criminal trial experience. And then we hire them, and through that MOU I mentioned earlier, the Memorandum of Understanding with the DA's office, we place that prosecutor into the district attorney's office. So they work as part of the district attorney team, but they are an employee of the Department of Insurance. So they have kind of a dual chain of command. They're in the district attorney's office where they report because the DA has the constitutional authority to prosecute cases, but then they report through TDI Fraud Unit because we are their employer and we're the ones investigating and prosecuting insurance fraud. We don't control the disposition of cases. The district attorneys do that, but we do provide the technical oversight over the program.
And our embedded prosecutors act as assistant DAs, right? They try the whole case?
Right. They're sworn in as assistant district attorneys.
Now, Rick, you're one of these embedded prosecutors.
Yes.
Is that structure that Kyson was talking about, that dual structure, is it complicated? Are there nuances that you have to learn?
I mean, it's an interesting situation. I mean, as a prosecutor in one office, you can easily be bounced from one court to another, to one section to another. It's nice to be embedded and sworn as an assistant district attorney in a bigger office, but I can still focus on just one thing.
One type of case, right?
Yes, just on insurance fraud cases. And like Kyson was mentioning, being a subject matter expert, the chief that I work under in Harris County is very appreciative that if he has any insurance question whatsoever, he can just come directly to me or my other prosecutor that works with me. And then if we don't know the answer, we can ask somebody.
Call the home office, right?
Yeah, we can find an answer if we need to. Yeah.
What kind of cases have you been focusing on? Are there any successes you can share with us?
Since I started with the Department of Insurance just as COVID hit.
Oh,
my first week, it was the week of the quarantine. So it's been a challenge.
Gearing up.
Yes, but the first case that I started working on, that was the former NFL football players.
Right.
There was a trainer and 8 former players that had colluded together to commit fraud. The total was around $600,000 that they'd gotten between the group. Some got a little bit more, some got some less. But that case, I indicted that one. All of those I've pled. I think I recovered somewhere around $300,000 in restitution up front before the pleas.
And that in that case, they were submitting false medical bills to the NFL's player fund.
Yes, the trainer would give them these doctored documents saying that he treated them, and then they would send them in. Sometimes he would send them in. Mostly they would send them in. And then when they would get the money, they would just kind of split some of the money. And in a situation like that, I mean, it gets kind of complicated when you're talking about 9 different people and we're talking about a specific health plan that the NFL has. So it takes some expertise to know a little bit more about it. So as being the TDI prosecutor, it's much easier since I have the expertise for the office. So the financial crimes unit that I work in has about a dozen prosecutors. So it's them being able to rely on me to take care of those kind of cases and not use the county resources for cases like that. It's a huge help.
So it really is kind of a symbiotic relationship. We give them something and we're closer to prosecuting those cases. And
it is. And, an important aspect that Rick alluded to is not only does he have the technical expertise, but he has the backing of TDI, and TDI has other experts. We can reach out to a head of a division that covers a particular line of coverage, and they can give us insight if we don't understand how a particular type of insurance works. And so having the backing of the Department of Insurance really gives us extra power, if you will, in prosecuting these complex types of cases.
We have that pool of knowledge from our subject matter experts in property and casualty and also the health and life area. So Kyson, why is it important that we go after insurance fraud?
Well, Ben, insurance fraud is a crime that impacts everybody. Every household pays insurance premiums, and if insurance companies are paying out claims that are fraudulent, that's going to impact the amount of premiums they have to charge to cover losses. So we want to stop the flow of that fraudulent money out of the insurance companies to decrease or at least help impact, keep the premiums that consumers are paying at a lower level.
Yeah, and affect that upward pressure where we can. Rick, what kind of feedback have you had with the other personnel in that office?
It's very good. I mean, they
appreciate you.
Talk to me quite often, actually. Anytime that there's an insurance related case that comes through, they will come and talk to me, ask me specifics of how to indict it, what they should be looking for. Because we focus on the cases that are investigated by Department of Insurance. So TDI cases, we handle those. On occasion, we'll handle cases that aren't investigated by TDI, but most of those go to the other prosecutors in the office.
Oh, so they still handle some other insurance crimes. You're kind of their resource there.
Yes, and the years of experience that I've had in other areas as well. I mean, they've been very welcoming and invited me to, to sit in on some sessions talking about different cases. So I tend to help out not only in just insurance fraud, but just any investigation or any kind of case that you're prosecuting that is money related, since I have a background in that. So they're very welcoming in that regard.
That's great. That's another question I was going to led me to think about is how do we get the cases that we pursue? I mean, where do the tips come from?
Well, in the insurance companies, SIUs are required to report fraud to the Department of Insurance. So these referrals will go to the Department of Insurance, and then they're assigned to investigators to look at. And then by the time I get it, it's already been assigned to an investigator. An investigator's worked it up, and everything should be ready to go when they bring it to me. But there's a lot of times where they have active investigations where they're also talking to us too, like asking me, should I do this? How would I do this? Do you think this is a good idea? What evidence would you need, for this specific aspect of the case?
How can I be successful in prosecuting this case?
Yes. Yeah. Well, what do you want? Because we want
what's going to make it work?
Exactly. So we want the cases to come to us fully worked up and ready to go. On occasion, we have to ask a few more questions and find out a little bit more. But generally, they come from TDI to us. But also when there's an issue like with the Houston Police Department, if they have an insurance fraud case that they're working on that they don't have they don't have expertise on, a lot of times they'll talk to the chief of the section. They'll talk to Rick, and then I'll talk to them and explain to them. I ask them questions about what's this case about? What really happened? And then I can give them some insight and some direction as to what they should be asking for from insurance companies.
For our viewers, let's rewind a little bit. What are SIUs and how does that work?
Special investigation units in insurance companies. Yeah.
So insurance companies have their own investigators because they want to stop fraud and losses for themselves.
Yes. Yes, exactly. Yes. So they're usually in my experience, very helpful when I go back to follow up with them to ask them for information. I mean, they're generally more helpful when I'm asking them, who do I send restitution to? But so we have that as well. And building relationships with them is really good too, because it helps out with the sections that we're embedded in, because if we have a question about a specific insurance company, I've had prosecutors come to me like, hey, I have this one issue with this one insurance company. Do you have a contact there? Yeah, so if I don't have a contact there, I can ask someone knows someone at that insurance company, so we can get the information that we need quickly.
Again, you've got the whole TDI agency as your backup there. Kyson, so Rick was telling us about some tips that come from insurance companies, but we get our tips from all over, correct?
Yes, Ben, we get tips from every place. We get them not only from companies, law enforcement sometimes will report fraud, individuals will report fraud. Sperm spouses really like to report fraud. So they come in from all groups of individuals and companies alike.
So how do we determine which ones look like they can be built into a case that we can prosecute?
Oh, Ben, I don't want to give away our trade secrets here. That might encourage people out there to try to evade our tactics. But, I will tell you from a high level perspective that every tip, as you call it, or fraud report that we receive is looked at on a case-by-case basis. And then we want to be good stewards of the resources of the citizens of the state of Texas that they've given to TDI to allow us to do this job. And so we want to investigate and prosecute those cases that are going to have the most impact on the insurance industry or on consumers. And so as we look across the scope of fraud reports or tips that we receive, we try to determine which ones are going to have the biggest impact on the market, move the needle, if you will. And that's how we're going to address fraud in the cases that we open and investigate and prosecute.
This all sounds like win-win. How long has this been going on, and why aren't other states doing this?
Well, Texas was the first to start a program like this, and this will be our 20th year of our prosecution program. So we started the program in March of 2005, and I was the first prosecutor hired by TDI. And
You were the program at that time.
I was the program in 2005. I was the only prosecutor, and we did not have any investigators assigned to our district attorney's offices. We entered into an agreement with the Dallas County District Attorney's Office in 2005. I was embedded there, and there were a lot of cases waiting on me whenever I showed up. There was a room with boxes piled up of cases. But since 2005, we've expanded the program from Dallas to Bexar, Harris, Tarrant, and Travis counties. So we now have prosecutors embedded in those offices. And you asked Rick a question earlier about how he's viewed in the office. One, I think the fact that those DAs continue to renew those agreements speaks to the success of the program. So every time there's a new district attorney elected, we have to renew our memorandum of understanding with the DA. And in Dallas County, I've been through that process 6 times, and several times in each of our other counties. Even if the DA is reelected for a new term, we execute a new memorandum of understanding with the district attorney's office. And not a single one of them has failed to renew our memorandum of understanding. So
Obviously, it's valuable to them.
I think it's very valuable. 20 years of success, I think, shows that the program is valuable.
And the counties that you mentioned earlier, they're all urban counties because that's where the largest impact, again, can be had. Is that correct?
Exactly. There's more opportunity for fraud to be committed in a larger setting like that. One, you've got more individuals there, but you also have more of your insurance companies. The business of insurance is based in those cities.
Any plans for the future of the program?
Well, Ben, I'd like to see it continue for another 20 years at least. I've been involved in this program 20 years. I probably won't be around for the next 20, but I sure would like to see it go on for another 20. And, I think the success of the program maybe warrants expansion, but that remains to be seen. If there are other areas that show to be hotspots for fraud, then TDI can look at the possibility of placing a prosecutor into those areas as well.
So certainly we're not wrapping up this program after 20 years. It just continues to move forward.
Absolutely.
Well, very good. Thank you both for spending some time with us. We really appreciate you talking to us about the program.
Thanks for having us, Ben.
You bet. Thank you. So now that you know about TDI's embedded prosecutors, watch this video to learn about our forensic accounting and financial investigations. If you've got insurance questions, call our helpline or visit our website. Thanks for watching. We'll talk to you next time.